Now, what we're going to do is introduce our next speaker, Laura May Peroff. Now, I spoke with her briefly and did some research on her. I'm not a big fan of hers because where has she traveled? She's traveled to. She normally is in Costa Rica in the winter, Bocas del Toro.
But we're from Edmonton.
From Edmonton. Edmonton's cold. I get it. Cozumel, Jamaica. Guys, I was in Hawkesbury last weekend. And I'm going to Peterborough next week. So good on you. Laura May Peroff began investing in real estate in 2012 by purchasing, furnishing, and renting Calgary condos to busy executives. For the past year, Laurie May's business, Sweet Home Builds, has partnered with local builders to beautify Edmonton's core areas by constructing eco-friendly, sustainable, modern homes in a variety of styles to appeal to a broad spectrum of end purchasers. These infill projects include skinny homes, single-family homes, and small to medium-sized apartments using both traditional building materials and, more recently, shipping containers, I love it, as building materials. In her spare time, Laura May enjoys spending time with her family and friends and vacationing in the tropics. Come on up.
Hello. I do have to say I got off the plane yesterday here. It was much more tropical than Edmonton. However, I still didn't need flip-flops, not really liking it. I think anything white in the winter or in the summer should be sand, not snow. But that's my own opinion. I guess I'm entitled to it. You're allowed to have your own too. So as I said in the introduction, I do have a fairly diverse portfolio through Sweet Home and Sweet Home Builds. I like to do infill builds. I do rent-to-owns. I have some buy-and-hold strategy in my portfolio. When I got started, I started with Keyspire as a member of Keyspire, and I decided to renovate my basement suite because, Scott McGilvery renovates basement suites, and it's really easy, right? It takes about a half hour, and you get tenants in there, checks to the bank, baby. Turns out he might be kind of oversimplifying it a little bit for TV, just a little bit. So I really found that work to be rewarding and exciting. I just loved it. I love the creativity of creating your own space and inviting people into your home who are going to pay you to live there as opposed to the boomerang kids that just keep coming back. Really enjoyed it, but I also found out I'm not very good at it. I had set a timeline for my first one for I figured it'd take about 3 months to do the basement conversion. It'll probably take about $40,000. So 14 months later and about $85,000, I was finally able to bring some tenants in. So that wasn't the best, but maybe the second one would be better. So the second one was another 4 month that wound up taking 8 months. It was a $40,000 budget that wound up being $75,000. Finally, I said, I'm going to go broke at this rate. I can't keep doing this myself. So let me try and find somebody who's a little bit better at this than I am, who can maybe stick to a budget and a schedule. So I was pretty fortunate to find some good people in Edmonton that are able to do that much better than I am. I really get to enjoy the land development. And another nice bonus is I don't have to pick from 197 different options. I'm allowed 2 or 3 occasionally, and I get to pick my favorite of those. So I still feel like I'm in it and doing some creative stuff. So lately, in order to find something a little bit more environmentally sustainable, a little bit more friendly, as well as to speed up the building process, Adam and I started working together to build shipping container homes in Edmonton. And because we like the process so much, we've started our own company. So we've partnered together, co-founding Candwell Corporation. So the sheet says Sweet Home Builds. That's me, but I'm also Candwell in partnership with Adam Morris from Copper Block. Come on up, Adam.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Am I on here? Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Hi, Adam Morris. Nice to see everybody. So thanks for the introduction, Laurie. So we're thrilled to talk to you guys today about shipping container houses. Really interesting. You know, it's a buzzword, and you know, along the same lines as Ryan Carr mentioned earlier, tiny homes. It's you know, it becomes something that people go, oh, shipping container homes. What's that all about? So let's just talk a little bit about how we started going down this road and why we started going down this road. So a little bit about my background. So my folks started a renovation and construction company, home builder. When I was just a little guy. I spent my youth running around job sites, sweeping and tripping over paint cans. And then after university, I took over the family business. And we've been building single-family houses, apartments, doing renovation and construction flips for now 33 years as a company. I've personally been involved in more than 150 projects. And in the next 18 months or so, we will, from today to the next 18 months, we'll complete in the neighborhood of about $50 million worth of projects. So we've got a number of projects that are on the go. We're really excited about Canwell and shipping container houses. So the reason we started looking at shipping container houses and you know, sort of got into the genesis of where we are today is because we were looking at a way to build something that was more sustainable, that created a bit of a tighter envelope, so required less energy use, required fewer trees, fewer consumables, and something that we could do quicker. So in exploring the different options that we had, we came up with shipping containers. We originally partnered with another company, but shipping container houses are tough. And the reason for that is because people haven't figured out how to create a shipping container home that is allows a home buyer to have their cake and eat it too, which means it functions like a shipping container house. The envelope itself is tight. You have all the sustainable environmental benefits, all the energy savings. However, it looks and feels like a normal house. So it has to look on the outside like a normal house. It has to have siding or stucco or wood or rock. And the inside, it has to be open concept. It has to be front to back, left to right, completely open. If it isn't, then people don't want it. So we had some challenges, and we decided that we'd go about figuring out how to build our own. So we hired a team of engineers, did tons and tons of research, spent about a year working with envelope consultants and engineers to try and figure out the best way to build these things so that we could create a tight envelope that, as I say, looked like a normal house, and on the inside didn't have any unsightly posts or beams or bulkheads, something that didn't make sense. So what we're able to come up with is basically an assembly of shipping containers that, when put together, either in a single unit or in a series of units combined, as I say, look and feel like a shipping container house. So we manufacture them in our facility in Edmonton, Alberta, but we can actually transport them all across Canada. So we transport them first by truck and then by rail. The best application for shipping container houses, in our opinion, is what Ryan mentioned before, coach suites. In Edmonton, we also have garden suites. That's something that municipalities are looking at. But the options that Ryan was speaking of in terms of being able to add on to your existing building, that's something that a shipping container does really well. Let's talk about shipping containers themselves. Pardon me?
And garage suites.
Yeah, and garage suites, precisely. Let's just talk about the shipping containers themselves. So shipping containers come in a variety of forms. So let's just get back to what shipping containers are. So obviously they come overseas, and really interesting. You know, they're loaded with goods, generally coming from China, from Asia. Really interestingly, 96% of shipping containers that land on North American shores never actually leave. And the reason for that is because it's cheaper to manufacture a new shipping container and send it over full of goods than it is to send the empty one back. So consequently, you have shipping container yards and ports and rail yards that are full of shipping containers that are rotting away. Now, there's been a cottage industry that's developed over the last few years, Container King, pods, whereby people are buying these things up and using them. But generally speaking, they still look and function like a shipping container. They're for storage. So we thought, instead of allowing them just to sit and rot, let's see what we can do. So we went about this research and figured out how to make them. They come, generally speaking, in 3 different formats. Either an 8 feet wide by 40 feet deep, 8 feet wide by 20 feet deep, or an 8 foot wide by 12 foot deep. Now, the 8 by 40, that gives you 320 square feet. That's a perfect size for somebody who has a decent size lot and wants to add something to the back. An additional dwelling. So we found that it's perfect for landlords who want to add some additional rent to their space. You simply install screw piles or a slab on grade construction, or you can put a full foundation in and double your square footage. As you can see, for us, the standard configuration is 1. However, it's easy for us to put a few together. And actually, if we can go back to the first page, here, I'll just do this. How's that? Sure. If it works, you have to click away. Yeah, so this is an example. Well, we can take a look at that. That's actually an example of a 8 by 40 foot container. So you can see that it's got siding on the outside, and it's all right. Siding on the outside and rock on the front. We've put a small overhang over top of it, and it also functions as a rooftop patio. It can function as a rooftop patio as well. It's also a perfect platform for solar panels as well.
I should point out too, these are just some designs that we've come up with. They're considered to be jumping off points. So if you want more window, less window, if you need different look to and feel to the front, anything can be mixed and matched.
So in terms of the cost of building a shipping container, because that's the next thing that comes up. People go, okay, great. So you're saving some trees. You're going to use a product that's sitting and is ultimately rotting away. That sounds great. It can look and feel like a regular home. It's more energy efficient than a standard home. We figure typically it has about a 30% reduction in energy use. People then go, okay, well, if you're using a product that's just sitting, wasting away, well, it must be cheap. And actually, it's more expensive. And the reason being is all of the modifications that we have to make to the cans, the structural improvements, and the remediation that we have to make to the cans actually creates a more expensive product. The benefit, however, is that we can make these shipping container houses in our facility and ship them to site, and they can be ready in approximately a third to a half of the time of standard stick frame construction. So if you're going to buy a lot and build a new house, apply for a development permit, generally speaking, by the time you're all done, it's going to take you about a year. We can complete a full home inside of 6 months, ship it to site, and set it up for you. We do all of the foundation work, all of the permit work. We take care of everything for a buyer. So if you want to put a shipping container home in an empty lot or as a garage suite or as a garden suite, we will work with the developer, the local municipality to figure it out. You had a question? Yeah. So we haven't had any issue in speaking with CMHC and all the primary banks, as well as First National and the primary lenders. Nobody has an issue with it. The reason being is that all of the drawings and the building themselves are stamped by engineers, reviewed by structural engineers, and then reviewed by local building codes experts. So they meet or exceed all of the building codes locally, and so lenders have no issue with it. So, the primary benefit is the amount of time that you're going to save. So they are a little bit more costly. However, we don't pass that cost along to our buyers. So the average cost for construction is between $225 and $275 a foot, which, if you're building a standard mid-range home, is about what you're going to pay for a conventional home. Certainly, you can get it done for cheaper if you're building a cheaper home with less expensive finishings. And that's certainly something that we can factor in. Now, of course, the foundation and development charges are, of course, over and above that. Primary benefit, though, is delivery in half the time. As I said, the secondary benefit is the reduction in energy use, so approximately 30% less energy use. as well as reducing your carbon footprint. So the average 2,000 square foot home requires 16 80-foot mature pine trees for construction worth of lumber. So 16 80-foot trees, so you can imagine this room filled with those trees. That's the number of trees you have to cut down for all of the lumber that you have to use to build the home. So for us, we look at it and go, we can use a product that's sitting there. It's ultimately a better product to build a home with. It's a more perfect product. It's also fire and mold resistant, as well as earthquake resistant because of the rigidity of the construction of the containers. So between the reduced energy footprint, the reduced timeline, and a functional layout that works well for people, we think that this is a winning product. We often have people say to us, well, why hasn't this type of construction taken over in the market? And the reason for that, in our opinion, is because it's taken a long time to perfect how we build stick frame houses. If you think about it, we've been building stick frame houses for 100 years in Canada, and there's still things that we're tweaking. There's still different methods to construction that we're figuring out. With shipping container homes, people have been sort of going at them for maybe the last decade or two, but nobody's really done it on scale. And so we think that there's an opportunity in the market as the science is perfected and as people figure out how to build them without the impediments that I spoke of before, while realizing all of the benefits of shipping container home, that nobody in their right mind would pass up using shipping containers to build a home. Laurie May, is there anything that I've missed?
Well, just a couple of little stories that I like to
Yeah, please.
One of the things we get asked about fairly often is how much work is done in the factory versus how much work is done on site. So this particular slide is talking about the work done on site. In the factory, we can get a heck of a lot done. Part of how much gets done depends on whether it's a single container home we're building or a multiple container home we're building. So for single container homes, once it gets to site, it's pretty much all done. We need to get it tied into foundation, be that screw piles or traditional poured foundation. We need to complete the finishes and make sure, because we leave a little bit open for city inspectors, they want to have a little peekaboo before we actually tighten everything right up. Hook up the utilities, complete the landscaping, we're pretty much done. If it's multi-containers, it's all of that, plus we have to cement together on site as well. So one of the things that I was hoping to mention, just circling back to costs again, so traditionally building something yourself, you would think that a shipping container would be less expensive, as you mentioned. It works out to about $15 more per square foot to build with shipping containers. And the primary cost vehicle, the primary thing driving that up is welders and structural steel is a lot more expensive than a framer and 2x4s. So that's the big difference there.
As you can see from the slides that we've shown, so there's a number of different finishes. So, that's a question, of course, that comes up is people say, okay, well, if I'm going to add this dwelling to the back of my home, it needs to look and feel like the other house. So we've figured out how to create the envelope such that you can put siding on the outside, stucco on the outside, as I said, stone and wood. We can also create an artificially pitched roof. So if you have a pitch on your roof, which most people will, then we can recreate that. Now, practically it serves no purpose. It's purely for aesthetics. In fact, the flat roof that ship containers have by nature of their construction, with a little bit of grade added and some roofing material, functions as an excellent roof. So yeah, that would be about it. Tony, you've got the mic.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there's going to be questions out there.
That's pretty awesome, eh? Anybody with questions? All right, maybe if people have questions, you want to come to the front and you can ask them here. How's that? Come on up. Christian, I know you got a question. Just come up now.
Hi, thank you. I had two questions, quick. Have you ever put a container on a container for a basement? Like
Yeah, so for our apartment builds, that's what we're doing is partially sinking shipping containers. So there's still some underground work that has to be done in the hole once you dig it, but they work well to be stacked. In fact, one of the pictures that we have is of our 2,000 square foot 2-story open concept infill, and we actually have 6 containers. So 3 across the bottom and then 3 on top, and actually 3 across the bottom works really, really well. Because, as I said before, conventional size of a shipping container is 8 feet wide by either 40 feet deep or 20 feet deep. So if you wanted to build a 2,000 square foot home, you would combine 3 shipping containers, which would give you 24 feet wide by 40 feet deep, and then stack another 3 on top. So it works out very well.
Perfect. And second question, when you do a multi-container build, when you do a multi-container build, do you put them together on site in your facility, and build it, and then take it apart, ship it, so they go back together nicely?
Right. So, that's one of the big challenges, and that's one of the reasons that shipping container homes as larger than a single unit hasn't been propagated. And the reason for that is the seaming. So that's a challenge for people. What we do is we finish sections completely on the inside and on the outside, put all the flooring in, put all the drywall in, put all the exterior in on, and then ship it to site, seam it together. So we actually go through and put seams all the way across. We have a welder that comes and puts the seam all the way across. And then we finish the inside and the outside to match what's going on with the rest of the finish. So it works well. However, the best way to do it is with a single shipping container, because you can finish absolutely everything, and then there's very, very little work that has to be done on site.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
This is a really interesting topic. I've
Thank
been
you.
starting to look at modular development in terms of use of. Down east, I think it's Kemp Building Supplies that's doing modular homes. They ship up in modular components.
Right.
And I've seen some sixplexes being built with that design. What I'm curious about with your design is, have you tested what level of scale you can build in terms of the number for high density units to build multi-unit residentials? And how large do you think you can feasibly build these? And then what does that do in terms of the cost per square foot?
Yeah, so, first to answer the second part of your question, anytime you're doing something over and over and over again, you can take advantage of scales of economy. So the more units we build, the cheaper it is. For us, the maximum size that we've gone is 3 stories. However, there's a number of examples actually in Manitoba, as well as a number of overseas, where manufacturers have gone up to as many as 10 stories stacking shipping containers. There's a new company that's trying to stack, I believe, 30 stories worth in the Middle East. So we haven't done it, but that is something that's coming. And yeah, certainly, shipping container manufacturing, shipping container homes on a single home scale, as I said, it's a little bit more expensive. It costs us more to build, and so certainly there are people that try to do it, and that's the big challenge that they have. That's one of the challenges as to why this method hasn't been propagated. However, it lends itself really, really, really well, especially in a manufacturing setting. We've just taken over a 20,000 square foot facility with 2 10-ton overhead cranes. And the reason for that is to take advantage of the scales of economy possible. Scales of economy. You can essentially set it up like a factory line, as you would to build a car, and you just have the container move down the line, and everybody's responsible for their portion of work. So we think it lends itself really, really well, and we think that that's really the future of shipping container housing.
So I think, particularly in the Ottawa area, high-density urban environments where the cost of land is becoming a significant issue. I think, Nick can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the cost of land in Ottawa is in the order of $150, $200 a square foot. Or, well, yeah, depending where you are, of course. But so the cost of land is a significant and dominant factor.
Right.
So this kind of thing sounds like it could be a very good solution towards affordable housing solutions and things of that nature. So I hate to put you on the spot, right? But let's say you wanted to build, I don't know, like a 20-unit complex with this stuff. with reasonable square footage, I don't know, call it, and I don't know how well the containers lend to this, but I don't know, in the order of, say, maybe 350, 400 square feet a unit. Okay, maybe you have a better dimension you want to work with. What do you figure that would probably cost per square foot?
Well, if you did them at say 320 square feet would be an ideal size. And if you were to put 20 units together, we're talking 6,000 square feet.
Yes.
So I would look at that and go, okay, well, simple math, I think that we could build it at roughly $200 a square foot, so 1.2 million. Now, you could probably do it cheaper, depending on the level of finishings that you included both on the inside and the outside. As you well know, if you're in this business, as you well know with conventional construction, right? It all depends on what products you pick. The real benefit, however, that I have to highlight is the long-term carrying costs. So if you were going to build 20 units and carry it for 20 years, you would achieve a significant savings both in terms of your energy usage and as well. Pardon me?
Can I tell the energy story?
Yeah, please go ahead.
One of my favorite ones that Adam taught me fairly early was our 2000 standards say that if you build a home and it's 20 degrees below outside and you set your furnace for 20 degrees inside, should the furnace go out, you're going to be losing approximately 1 degree per hour, right?
Right.
So that's normal standards. That's a great, well-built home today, bricks and sticks. Our patented insulation thing, same conditions, 20 degrees below outside, 20 degrees in the house. If the furnace goes off, it's half a degree a day. So furnace goes out today, you might not even know till Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, which is obviously a massive benefit. And the reason for that is reduced geothermal bridging from the inside to the outside, and as well the tightness of the envelope. So, in terms of carrying costs long term, you're going to see a significant savings. If you do own and operate rental units, you're going to see a significant savings with your energy use over 20 years. The other thing is a number of insurers have told us anecdotally that their insurance on a property goes down drastically because of reduced hazard as it relates to both fire and, as I say, disasters, as well as mold. There's still things to burn on the inside of the house, and there's still things that can grow mold on the inside of the house. But where you have real issues is between the walls, and between the walls are made of metal. So there's nothing organic for mold to grow on or for fire to propagate in. So. Cool. Yeah, so we think it's a great tool for landlords over the long term. The other way, of course, that you save money is with reduced timeline. It doesn't take you a year to build a house. It doesn't take you 8 months to build a garage suite. You can have it done in half or a third of the time. Now, if you buy a property, say you buy a property for $300,000, your carrying cost on that every month will be roughly $1,800. Well, if you're sitting there with vacant lands for a year, well, that's cost you $20,000. So if you can reduce that time where that land isn't actually making money down to 6 months, now all of a sudden it only costs you $10,000. So you realize a $10,000 savings right off the hop.
All right. 2 more quick questions.
Please.
Okay.
Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
First thing is that you're based out of Edmonton. Are
Sorry.
most of your projects there, or are you expanding out to the rest of Canada?
That's right. So we're building all across Canada. Our intention is to build all across Canada. Shipping containers obviously lend themselves really, really well to travel. That's what they're designed for. So what we do is finish them in the factory. A roll-up truck or a cherry picker comes, picks them up on the back of a flat deck, carries it to a rail yard. It's offloaded in the rail yard from the truck onto a rail car and is transferred to your local rail yard and then is unloaded. We arrange in Edmonton, in our facility with our project managers, we arrange for the site work to be done here, the utilities, trenching, foundation, all of the work that has to be done prior to shipping container arriving. Then the shipping container arrives, we have somebody here or wherever to manage the installation and finish it up.
That's where one of the actual time savings comes from, the fact that you're able to be building the house at the same time you're doing all the land prep work. Mm-hmm. Both can be happening at the same time. You could be applying for development permits or building permits at the same time the building's being built in the shop. So right. Very, very handy that way.
Right.
Second question, what has your experience been working with the city with respect to getting permits? Because, as you know, shipping containers is a new trend.
Right,
Or it's
no
a new
precedent.
trend in home construction. So
Right.
some cities might be treating you differently than others.
Right.
So can you, for the benefit of us,
Yeah, please.
lessons learned that you
Certainly.
experienced?
So we found that, thanks for your question, great question. So we found that most municipalities are open to it. In fact, all the municipalities that we've spoken with are open to it and are happy to oblige. Generally what happens, however, is that the residential safety codes inspector, the gentleman that will review the plans and ultimately give you the rubber stamp to build, he generally can't deal with them. So what he has to do is he has to pass them on to generally the commercial guys, because the commercial guys are the ones that have experience with steel construction. The other thing is, of course, all of the drawings come stamped by a structural engineer and a building envelope engineer. And generally speaking, planning's policy is if it's been approved by an engineer, then they can waive all liability for it. So they go, okay, fine, an engineer is going to take responsibility for this, have at it. So we haven't had any issues locally. One of the challenges that we have had is some municipalities will allow us to finish everything up in our facility, close absolutely everything up. Other municipalities want to do an inspection once it arrives to the municipality. And so in that case, we'll leave wall and floor off as necessary to allow a local inspector to check it out.
Okay, I got one more question.
Please, go ahead, Tony.
How does Wi-Fi work in there? Like if I move in, like what? It's a container.
We put a cell tower right on the roof. That's it.
So you kind of gave me a hint that this question might be coming earlier. So I ran into one of our builds, and with my phone, I had the same number of bars in the middle of the building and at all four corners as I had when I was outside on the street. So same. We are a little bit concerned about how that might be in, say, a 9-plex or 12-plex or 20-plex for the interior units. And in that case, we just run Wi-Fi boosters to the interior units.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There you go.
Okay, well, got one more. Sorry.
Please.
Is everyone okay? One more? Okay.
In terms of capacity, what is the total number of units, these shipping containers? And there's about 200,000 homes built in Canada in 1 year. So what portion of that total market could you address?
Well, I think certainly we're not us as a company independently, we're not a solution. Much like, Tesla won't be the only electric car manufacturer out there. And that's a nice way to compare ourselves, a nice company to compare ourselves to. But, I think that, reasonably, as they pop up over the next number of years, as companies continue to perfect the construction, that you could see as many as maybe 5 or 10% of the market taken by shipping container builders. There's certainly enough shipping containers out there that could be repurposed. However, it's a matter of companies wanting to do it, and first and foremost, consumers wanting them. Consumers have to realize the benefits, and the only way consumers get to realize the benefits is by checking them out themselves. So we hope to install shipping containers in every major shipping container homes in every major market across Canada, so that people have an opportunity to see it. In fact, we've just finished Edmonton's first shipping container spec home. So not only are we building them specifically for clients, but we're also buying land and developing shipping container houses on it to give individuals who maybe won't take the plunge into buying a shipping container home before seeing it, the opportunity to potentially get into one. So we're really excited about it. So thanks so much.
Cool. Awesome. Let's give them a hand, eh? Laurie May.
Thank you very much.